Things good. Here. 1 2 1 2 1 2. Oh, alrighty. Alrighty. So. Now we're on to articles after just talking about weatherology terminology for some streams already. So this is gonna be a different change of pace. I read part of it, but I figured I'd just restart it. I already know the gist of it, so I know what to do. So, this is a commentary article lately about 6 Days of Fallujah, the game, by Ethan Gash, a guy who writes a bunch of other articles, not just for Kotaku, from what I know of. You don't have to run the exclusive review for the War Prime game. Yeah, you have like pretty much 3 Marines assault team. While this guy is not really using a tactical kit, he's actually doing a sidewind kick, which, yeah, looks pretty badass. I see he actually cuffed his bootstrapped with his sock instead of tucking it in. But from what I remember in the Marines, you're not allowed to do that. So people actually have to cuff it since it looks pretty tight. Well, anywho, Highwire Games, so official screenshot from the game. Alrighty, rebooted War Crime Simulator 6 Days of Fallujah got its official gameplay reveal yesterday in a new trailer that seems to confirm some people's criticism of the game as one-sided propaganda for the US war machine. The trailer was debuted exclusively by IGN, the same website that just days earlier ran an in-depth report on problems surrounding the game and the apparent one-sidedness with which it would make a playable documentary out of one of the deadliest sieges in the US's invasion of Iraq. So the US's? That's interesting, where it's just a comma, you don't have to add the S. But, trying to do that with abbreviations, which, that's interesting. Quote. Should I? Yeah, I should just use my squirmy voice. United States military veteran Sergeant Jason Kyle and the developers of Victoria and Highwire Games walk through the first ever gameplay video of 6 Days of Fallujah, the tactical first-person shooter with procedural generated machine spaces based on real-life events from 2004's Second Battle for Fallujah in the Iraq War, end quote. IGN's description of the freed publicity reads, that's funny. The way I actually say it there, it sounds so robotic. I'm actually go along with that voice. The video focuses on the squad tacticals you'll use to break into people's homes and clear them of enemies. It highlights how layouts will constantly change to capture the feeling of not knowing what you'll find every time you step into a new room. The gameplay ends with a player busting into a room where a family of 4 hides in the corner hoping to get murdered. The video then cuts to real-life documentary footage as a resident of Fallujah explains that their dad refused to leave the city during the assault. Yeah, I learned a new voice, Microsoft Sam. Or Microsoft Tom. Either of those. Because, what is it, one of the Microsofts have a British accent. Or is it Dave? Well, whatever, I just go with Tom. Alrighty. What it doesn't mention is that many people were forcibly kept from leaving the city. I'll comment about that because I actually do know about it. Particularly because I actually didn't know much about it years ago. Not even related to this game. Maybe subconsciously, but now I had more interest with what was going on with the invasion of Iraq and what was going on with the war on terrorism in the U.S. mission sets and coalition in the Middle East. But anywho, as the not U.S. military, you know what? Let me rewind. Quote: As the U.S. military believes many of Fallujah's men are guerrilla fighters, it has instructed U.S. troops to turn back all males aged 15 to 55. End quote. The Associated Press reported in 2004. Alright. The trailer doesn't mention accounts of indiscriminate gunfire by the U.S. military either, or that it's reportedly used white phosphorus in the attack and chemical that literally belts through your body. The total number of deaths since the invasion of Iraq began is disputed, but the Iraq Body Count Project currently estimates 288,000 people have died, the majority being civilians, and reporters have covered the war have documented the litany of excuses from the U.S. government defending these deaths as anything but war crimes. It's this side of history that IGN dug into just last week in an important piece of report titled 6 Days in Fallujah is Complicated and Painful for Those Connected to the Real Events. The article interviews several people. Alex, a Lebanese Arab game developer, Ayif Shaikh, Yafut Shaikh, an Iraqi Jewish game developer and a Muslim developer who wish to remain anonymous, about their concerns and skepticism regarding yet another shooter glorifying the sacrifices of those in the U.S. military. Alright. Basically, when we look at a piece of media, we have to ask ourselves what it is trying to tell us, who is it serving, and who have the most to gain from the acceptance of this media is the truth. ... I would argue that it is not the Iraqi civilians, Shaikh told IGN. Alright. Monotone. Yeah, let's go with monotone. As a 6-minute commercial for the game, these aren't the types of questions the latest trailer is concerned with. When Peter Tammet, the head of the original studio behind the game and its current publisher, was pressed on these issues in yet another interview, this time on the latest episode of IGN's Unfiltered, he yet didn't have any real answers. Iraqi stories and testimonies were obtained for the game, but will make up a much smaller portion of the game than the first-person tactics deployed by the U.S. Marines. It described the invasion of Iraq not as a grave injustice with a staggering death toll, but a controversial. Okay. There's a Tom. I got my nasally voice, and let's... I should actually... I don't know. I do want to practice the voice, but, you know, not just to mandatorily do it just when I feel like it, but, you know, keeping track of it, that's the thing. I probably... time I'm trying something and I just want to remember it. Okay, so... flamboyant. Yeah. Also, okay, wait. As a grave injustice with a staggering death toll, but as controversial. Yeah, I do. I have developed a cadence now with a deep Microsoft Tom voice. Alright, got that. Okay, let me go with my springy voice. Well, spaggly, weakly, nasally voice. It really bothers me that there have this battle that is one of the most significant battles in the Western world in nearly half a century, but Hollywood have been afraid to tell these stories. Just because the war in Iraq was controversial doesn't mean that it isn't fulfilled with stories of sacrifice. Tammet told IGN's Ryan McCaffrey, because I remember in the videos that's how he actually pronounces his own last name. Okay, so I got a nasal voice. Now I gotta separate when using the flamboyant noise. All right, so. Whole sacrifices get elevated and publicized, however, it's precisely the issue. Whose sacrifices... Oh, okay. I think I got it. Whose sacrifices get elevated and publicized, however, is precisely that issue. Quote, very few people are curious what it's like to be an Iraqi civilian, end quote. Tammet said in a previous interview with GamesIndustry.biz, nobody's going to play the game, but people are curious that it's like to be in combat. It's the same reason people play survival horror games, being in a situation that is beyond what we have in our normal lives. Ultimately, the reason why people are going to play this game is because they want a more realistic combat experience. That above all else is the experience that we must believe. I'm also losing the accent a bit the louder I'm speaking, but I'm also speaking a bit louder so the mic can pick up. And I mean, I could always be closer here, but yeah, you just see my mouth, which, I feel like it's just great to go in the distance because it feels like I'm actually talking directly to a person. Gotta give them space. Gotta give them the face. So, yeah, I just practice that way. Alrighty. 6 days of Fallujah may end up being a critical look at the myriad ways people suffered during the battle, and at whose hands, but time and again the game shooter market has cut against that possibility. Everyone can and should interrogate... Oh, man, I'm actually losing. Everyone can and should interrogate how the game is shown, whether it should even exist, and what it ends up being. What you don't need to do is host an elevated trailer that whitewashes a shameful moment in history into a tactical simulation. Oh, tactical simulation. Alright. 6 Days in Fallujah is a shooter because that's what sells, but no one else has to help them do it. To help do it. Do it. Do it. Say like, do it. Okay. Oh. Yeah, my throat is actually good. At least my stomach is. I ate some good Domino's pizza. But yeah, that's pretty much it. There's other ones related to it here, which I might be enticed to read because I actually do want to. I thought it would give a little more background, especially with them mentioning about uranium shells. But, you know, at least I mentioned in the incidents using white phosphorus in the battle. But yeah, besides that, you pretty much have this published right around the same time. This is inevitably what will happen when games touch close to reality. It is weird to me that the guys say, no one wants to play as an Iraqi civilian, because I felt for a while now like a role reversal situation could potentially make for a very solid survival. Oh yeah, I might as well ask this commenter, use this commenter's voice as a countryman. Maybe he has an accent, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Like, imagine a game set during the Rwanda genocide in which your objective is to escape the country without getting killed. Yeah, it does sound different. Oh, sure. There's actually more replies. Yeah, can I access these? Maybe, maybe not. Yeah, the following replies are approved. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so it looks like the public can actually just look at the things without current account. Thanks. Thanks. Alright. Okay. My thoughts exactly about this line saying no one wants. Oh. Wants to play as an Iraqi civilian. I mean, for one thing, this war of mine did very well for itself and almost certainly sold more copies than this war crime war. Yeah, now I'm actually losing myself. Alright. It looks like playing around with four accents is still a bit too much for me. Yeah, actually playing perfect. But yeah, you have the rest of this, so I'll just peruse around. Wow, I really like how some commenters are talking about the war, this war of mine, and like the siege of Sarajevo, which happened around the Baltic region, because yeah, around the '90s, that was a big thing. I mean, nowadays it's still a UN mission to go to Kosovo, uh, especially when it comes to coalition force, which includes the U.S. Which I mean, that's the thing with the U.S. invasion of Iraq, because officially under the documents, you do have many not allied countries because we've preferred the terminology of coalition. Plus, it's just names, just referring to what they are, and also unofficially because what is it? You also have the influence of Israeli military around the region due to it being related to national security because Iraq is very close to Israel, so naturally there has been support with that, especially when it comes to Mossad and the intelligence front. And but all in all, that is something people don't forget. A large amount of UK soldiers and Polish. People tend to ignore Polish, but yeah, along with other forces around the Commonwealth, but into a degree. What keeps in mind is like Anzac, but Anzac doesn't exist anymore, and you can also say that with Commonwealths too. But some people say in terms of things. But anyhow, small groups around the globe that are initially the coalition that was in Afghanistan, um, and the first Persian Gulf War, because the invasion of Iraq is called Second Persian Gulf War to some people. It really depends on who you talk to or how they mention it. Has influence with that. But this battle was mainly carried by the U.S. Marines heading a large insurgent battle. But yeah, I actually want to talk more about this because these other articles are actually related to. Matter of fact, I probably want to also dig up with other old articles if they have it. But anyhow, next time I'll get on to it. Other than that, see ya.